Welcome to our channel. Before we delve into this chilling and haunting story, we kindly ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on other compelling content we're about to bring you. Your support is a huge motivation for us to continue creating high-quality and dramatic stories. Now, let's step with us into the gloomy world where shadows conceal horrifying truths. A true or nearly true story that once shook the entire United States. The autumn air in Willow Creek, California, usually carried the sweet scent of pine and damp earth, a comforting aroma that wrapped around the small, picturesque town like a familiar blanket. But in the early days of October 1998, that familiar comfort was replaced by an unsettling chill, a phantom cold that seeped into the bones long before the winter winds arrived. It began subtly, with whispers that brushed against the ears in the local diner, the hushed tones of neighbors exchanging worried glances across their manicured lawns. Then, the whispers solidified into a terrifying reality that would forever scar the idyllic landscape of Willow Creek. It started with a single disappearance, a quiet ripple in the otherwise placid waters of town life. Sarah Jenkins, a bright-eyed, optimistic 24-year-old art teacher, vanished without a trace on a Tuesday evening. Her car, a faded blue Honda Civic, remained parked perfectly in her driveway, its engine cold, a half-eaten bag of microwave popcorn still sitting on the passenger seat. Her studio apartment, usually a vibrant chaos of paint-splattered canvases and clay remnants, was meticulously neat, as if she had simply stepped out for a moment and forgotten to return. The police, led by the stoic but perpetually harried Chief Miller, initially treated it as a runaway case, a young woman seeking a new adventure. But Sarah wasn't the type. She called her mother every Sunday, had just landed a coveted commission to paint the mural for the new community center, and, most importantly, she adored her cat, Mittens, who was found mewling piteously at the empty food bowl, a silent testament to Sarah's abrupt departure. 2 weeks later, the whispers intensified. David Chun, a reclusive but well-respected botanist who spent his days tending to the town's botanical gardens, failed to show up for his usual morning walk. His small, cluttered cottage, nestled deep within a secluded patch of woods on the outskirts of Willow Creek, was found unlocked, a half-finished cup of herbal tea cooling on his kitchen counter, his meticulous garden journal lying open, its pages filled with elegant script describing the delicate bloom of the rare night-blooming cereus. Again, no sign of struggle, no forced entry, just an absence that gnawed at the edges of reason. The police, now feeling the first prickles of unease, began to take the disappearances more seriously. Patrols were increased, and a task force, comprising officers from neighboring counties, was assembled. The town, once a haven of tranquility, was now a tinderbox of fear. Parents kept their children indoors, locking doors they had never thought to secure before. The nightly walks, the friendly waves to passers-by, the spontaneous backyard barbecues all ceased. A palpable dread settled over Willow Creek, thick and suffocating. The local newspaper, the Willow Creek Gazette, usually filled with local bake sale announcements and high school football scores, now ran front-page headlines with grim, bold letters, 2 missing, foul play suspected. It was the third disappearance that shattered any remaining illusions of safety. Emily Henderson, a vibrant, 80-year-old widow known for her legendary apple pies and her unwavering community spirit, vanished from her meticulously maintained Victorian home. Unlike Sarah and David, there was a subtle, chilling detail. A single delicate red rose, its petals still dewy, placed carefully on her antique piano, a silent, macabre calling card. Emily had been a pillar of the community, a woman who knew everyone and was loved by all. Her disappearance, so sudden and complete, sent shockwaves not just through Willow Creek, but across the entire state. The media descended, a swarm of hungry locusts, their cameras flashing, microphones thrust at bewildered residents, eager for a scoop, for a shred of explanation. FBI agent Samuel Sam Thorne was assigned to the case. A seasoned veteran with a knack for profiling and an uncanny ability to connect seemingly disparate dots, Sam was a man whose calm demeanor belied a fiercely sharp mind. He arrived in Willow Creek on a brisk Tuesday morning, the air thick with the smell of wood smoke and a lingering sense of foreboding. He was a man of medium build, with keen, observant eyes that missed nothing, and a perpetually furrowed brow that spoke of years spent grappling with the darkest corners of human nature. He'd seen his share of tragedy, of senseless violence, but there was something about the Willow Creek disappearances that felt different, more insidious, almost surgical in its precision. "Chief Miller," Sam greeted, extending a firm hand to the weary chief. Miller, a man whose face seemed permanently etched with the stresses of his job, nodded grimly. His eyes, usually bright, were now bloodshot, shadowed with exhaustion. "Agent Thorne, glad you're here. We're at a loss." Sam spent the first few days immersing himself in the details, poring over case files, interviewing every resident who had even a passing acquaintance with the victims. He walked the paths Sarah had taken to work, sat in David's quiet garden, and stood in Emily's elegant living room, trying to inhabit their last moments, searching for any anomaly, any misplaced object, any scent of a struggle. The lack of evidence was startling. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses. It was as if the victims had simply evaporated into thin air, leaving behind only the ghost of their presence. "It's like a magician's trick," Sam remarked to his junior partner, Agent Jessica Riley, a brilliant young profiler with an intimidatingly sharp wit and an unwavering dedication to justice. "They're gone, but no one saw them leave." Jessica, her brow furrowed in thought, tapped her pen against her notepad. "The rose, though, Agent. That's a new element with Emily. It suggests a certain flourish, a signature." Sam nodded, his gaze distant, fixed on a faded photograph of Emily Henderson, her smile warm and inviting. "Yes, and a stark contrast to the previous two." Sarah and David vanished without a trace, almost as if they were chosen for their anonymity, their quiet lives. Emily, on the other hand, was well known, a visible member of the community. This escalation suggests confidence, a growing boldness. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch. National news outlets, sensing a compelling story, dispatched their top reporters. The idyllic image of Willow Creek was shattered, replaced by an image of a town gripped by terror, stalked by an unseen predator. Speculation ran wild. Was it a cult? A serial killer targeting specific demographics? A vengeful ex-lover? The theories were endless, each more terrifying than the last. Sam and Jessica meticulously built a timeline, searching for connections. Sarah and David were both relatively isolated, living alone. Emily, while well-connected, was also living alone. All three were taken from their homes, presumably in the dead of night, or at least during periods of low activity. There was no ransom note, no demand, no apparent motive. Just the chilling, silent disappearance. "The geographical proximity is striking," Jessica pointed out, tracing lines on a map of Willow Creek spread across their war room table. "All three locations are within a 5-mile radius, but they're not overtly connected. Sarah's apartment is downtown, David's cottage is in the woods, and Emily's house is in the older, residential district. Suggests the perpetrator knows the area well," Sam mused, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. "Or at least has extensively scouted it. They know the routines, the blind spots, the moments of vulnerability." A breakthrough, however small, came from a seemingly innocuous detail. During a second, more thorough search of Emily Henderson's home, a forensics technician discovered a faint, almost invisible scuff mark on the polished hardwood floor beneath the piano, near where the rose had been placed. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but it was not consistent with normal wear and tear. Further analysis revealed microscopic traces of a specific type of soil, not native to Emily's meticulously clean home or garden. "It's from a heavily wooded area, Agent," the technician reported, his voice tinged with excitement. "Distinctive composition, high in organic matter, consistent with the soil found in old-growth forests." Sam's eyes lit up. David Chen's cottage. It's surrounded by an old-growth forest. And he was a botanist. Could he have brought it in accidentally before? Possible, Jessica conceded. But unlikely given the location. It was under the piano, almost as if someone stood there for a moment, waiting, perhaps contemplating their next move. This tiny fragment of evidence, a mere whisper from the earth, sparked a new direction for the investigation. Sam ordered a thorough search of all wooded areas surrounding Willow Creek, focusing on those with similar soil compositions. The townsfolk, though terrified, rallied, forming search parties, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and grim determination. But days turned into weeks and still nothing. No bodies, no definitive answers, just the growing shadow of fear that clung to Willow Creek like a shroud. The psychological toll on the community was immense. Trust evaporated. Neighbors eyed each other with suspicion. Every shadow held a potential threat, every unfamiliar car a harbinger of doom. Chief Miller, once a symbol of stability, was now visibly cracking under the pressure. The media, relentless in their pursuit of the story, painted a picture of a town under siege, a place where evil walked freely, unchecked. Sam, however, remained stoic, his focus unwavering. He knew that the absence of evidence was, in itself, a form of evidence. The meticulousness, the lack of struggle, the carefully placed rows it all pointed to a perpetrator who was not only intelligent but also highly organized, someone who reveled in control. They weren't committing random acts of violence. There was a purpose, a twisted logic yet to be deciphered. He sat in the makeshift command center, a converted gymnasium, late one night, surrounded by maps, victim profiles, and endless data. The air hummed with the quiet whir of computers and the occasional clack of a keyboard. Jessica sat across from him, sipping a cold coffee, her brow furrowed in concentration. The profile is still elusive, she admitted, frustration evident in her voice. No consistent victimology other than their solitary living situations. No clear motive, no signature other than the rose in Emily's case, which might be an escalation, not a consistent trait. Sam leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on a satellite image of Willow Creek, a small, vulnerable, on the vast expanse of California. The lack of struggle, Jessica, that's what bothers me the most. These aren't weak individuals. Sarah was active, David was meticulous, Emily was feisty. To take them without a fight, it suggests either immense physical superiority or something else entirely. A deception, perhaps, or a complete surprise. He paused, a new thought forming in his mind. What if the point isn't the taking but the not finding? What if the true terror is the absence, the mystery, the lingering fear? Jessica looked up, her eyes widening slightly. A psychological game? To demonstrate power, not through violence, but through the ability to make people simply vanish. Precisely, Sam confirmed, a chilling realization dawning on him. This isn't just about murder, Jessica. This is about terrorizing a community, about proving that even in the safest, most idyllic places, complete control can be exerted. And the rose, it's not just a signature, it's a taunt, a message to us. You won't find them, and I'll leave you this little reminder of my presence. The implications of this new perspective were profound. It shifted the focus from finding bodies to understanding the mind behind the disappearances, a mind that thrived on fear and calculated anonymity. The Willow Creek killer was not just a murderer. They were a master of psychological warfare, an unseen puppet master pulling the strings of an entire town, leaving only whispers and shadows in their wake. And as the days turned into weeks, and the autumn leaves began to fall, painting the town in hues of fiery red and burnt orange, the chilling truth began to emerge. The monster of Willow Creek was just beginning its gruesome symphony. The whispers in Willow Creek had evolved into a terrified silence. The once bustling main street, adorned with quaint shops and cafes, now felt eerily empty, a ghost town haunted by the unseen presence of the predator. Fear hung in the air, thick and suffocating, making every shadow a potential threat, every creak of a floorboard a harbinger of doom. Agent Sam Thorne and Agent Jessica Riley, along with the beleaguered Chief Miller and his depleted force, were facing an unprecedented challenge. The killer, dubbed the Shadow Man by the increasingly frenzied media, was not just taking lives. He was systematically dismantling the very fabric of the community. The soil sample, the minute clue found beneath Emily Henderson's piano, had led to a painstaking and ultimately fruitless search of the vast, ancient forests surrounding Willow Creek. Hundreds of volunteers, armed with maps and an unwavering sense of dread, scoured the dense undergrowth, but the forest yielded no secrets, no hidden graves, no discarded belongings. It was as if the earth itself conspired with the killer, swallowing their victims whole. Sam, growing increasingly frustrated by the lack of tangible evidence, decided to shift tactics. If the killer was playing a psychological game, then the psychological profile needed to be meticulously refined. He and Jessica spent countless hours in the command center, a repurposed high school gymnasium, surrounded by crime scene photos, victim profiles, and intricate maps of Willow Creek. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and the hum of fluorescent lights. "Let's revisit the victims in detail," Sam suggested one late night, his voice hoarse from hours of discussion. "Beyond their solitary living, what else connects them? Or, perhaps more importantly, what distinguishes them from the general population?" Jessica, ever the meticulous researcher, laid out 3 separate dossiers. Sarah Jenkins, 24, art teacher, creative, free-spirited but grounded, loved her cat, active in local art community. David Chun, 57, botanist, reclusive, intellectual, meticulous, deep passion for nature. Emily Henderson, 80, widow, community pillar, vibrant, strong-willed, loved to garden, famous for her apple pies. "Demographics are all over the map," Sam mused, tapping his pen against his chin. "Age, gender, profession, social standing, no clear pattern for a typical serial killer targeting a specific type. This strengthens the psychological game theory. The victims are chosen for their impact on the community, not their individual traits as prey." "Or," Jessica countered, her eyes narrowing in thought, "they are chosen for what they represent." Sarah, youth, potential, the future of Willow Creek. David, knowledge, history, the connection to nature. Emily, wisdom, tradition, the heart of the community. Taking them is like tearing out the vital organs of the town. A chilling thought took root in Sam's mind. If that's the case, then the killer isn't just targeting individuals. They're targeting the very soul of Willow Creek. The town's fragile peace was shattered once more with the 4th disappearance, almost 3 weeks after Emily. This time, it was a high school student, 15-year-old Lucas Miller, the son of the town's beloved librarian. Lucas was a quiet, intelligent boy, known for his love of classic literature and his shy demeanor. He vanished from his bedroom, leaving behind an open book, a half-eaten sandwich, and the chilling absence that had become the killer's macabre signature. His window, a second-story dormer, was found slightly ajar, but with no signs of forced entry. This latest abduction sent a fresh wave of terror through Willow Creek. Children were now the targets. The public outcry was deafening. Parents staged protests outside the police station, demanding answers, demanding protection. Chief Miller, his face a mask of profound despair, had visibly aged years in a matter of weeks. The FBI task force, though working tirelessly, felt the weight of public expectation, the gnawing frustration of chasing a ghost. "This changes everything," Sam stated grimly, staring at Lucas's bewildered parents during their interview. The mother, Clara, clutched a crumpled photo of her son, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. The father, George, a gentle man usually, was rigid with a silent, simmering rage. "A child," Jessica murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "This isn't just about psychological terror anymore, is it? This is about inflicting maximum pain." Lucas represents innocence, the town's future. The killer is deliberately escalating. The only discernible clue left at Lucas's home was another red rose, this time placed on his bedside table, its velvety petals a stark, almost obscene contrast to the innocent chaos of a teenager's room. The consistency of the rose, now present in 2 out of 4 disappearances, solidified its role as a signature. "It's a communication," Sam said, gesturing towards the photographs of the two roses side by side. "But what is it saying? A symbol of love? Of death? Of a twisted reverence?" Jessica, drawing on her extensive knowledge of criminology, suggested, "Roses have deep symbolic meaning across cultures. Love, beauty, passion, but also secrecy, silence, and even death, especially red roses. In some contexts, a single red rose can symbolize, 'I still love you,' or 'I miss you.' But in this context, it feels more like a claim of possession." The psychological profile began to sharpen. The killer was intelligent, meticulous, and highly organized. They knew the town intimately, could navigate its streets and its shadows without detection. They were likely a local, someone invisible within the community, someone who could blend in seamlessly. The lack of struggle, even with Lucas, suggested either an ability to overpower the victim silently, or a method of incapacitation that left no trace. Drugs, perhaps, or a cunning deception. Sam and Jessica held a series of community meetings, attempting to gather any scraps of information, any unusual sightings, any long-forgotten grievances. The meetings were fraught with tension, suspicion, and outbursts of grief and anger. Fingers were pointed, accusations whispered. The community was tearing itself apart from the inside. "We need to think outside the box," Sam declared during a particularly frustrating meeting with Chief Miller. "This isn't a typical predator. The lack of traditional evidence is a deliberate choice. He wants us to be lost to chase shadows. We need to look for what he doesn't want us to see." They returned to the soil sample. If it came from an old-growth forest, and the known search areas had yielded nothing, what other possibilities were there? Sam ordered a reevaluation of all major construction projects in the area, any land clearings, any disturbed earth. It was a long shot, but he was desperate. The break came not from a new discovery, but from a re-examination of an old one. A retired local geologist, eccentric but brilliant, who had been assisting the search efforts, noticed a subtle discrepancy in the soil analysis. The initial report had focused on the old-growth forest aspect. But Dr. Eris Thorne, no relation to Sam, but a source of some mild amusement, pointed out that the specific mineral composition, while consistent with old-growth forests, also contained trace elements usually found near underground springs or a very specific type of rock formation unique to one particular area: the abandoned old Willow Creek mine. The Willow Creek mine had been shut down decades ago after a series of cave-ins and diminishing returns. It was considered dangerous, unstable, and largely forgotten. Its entrance was overgrown, obscured by dense foliage and a flimsy, keep-out sign that had long since rusted and faded. Sam's heart pounded. The mine, it's remote, inaccessible, practically invisible, and it's surrounded by old-growth forest, perfect for disposing of bodies, or for holding them. A massive search operation was immediately launched. FBI agents, local police, and even a specialized rescue team equipped with spelunking gear descended upon the mine entrance. The air around the mine was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, a heavy, oppressive smell that seemed to cling to everything. The entrance to the main shaft was indeed well hidden, almost swallowed by the relentless embrace of nature. After several hours of clearing brush and debris, the search team found a recently constructed, cleverly concealed plywood door, expertly camouflaged to blend with the surrounding rocks and vegetation. It was secured with a heavy, modern padlock. "He's been using this place?" Sam breathed, a grim certainty settling over him. "This is where he's holding them, or where he's been processing them." With a hydraulic cutter, the padlock was breached. The stale, cold air that rushed out of the mine shaft carried with it the faint, unmistakable smell of human decomposition. A collective shudder went through the team. They had found their killer's lair. What they discovered inside the mine was far more horrific than anything they had imagined. It wasn't just a burial ground. It was a meticulously organized, subterranean chamber of horrors. Deeper within the mine, a cavern had been painstakingly cleared and transformed. There were no bodies, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, The team found a series of carefully constructed, sealed cryo-chambers, each one humming with a low mechanical whir. The sheer scale and sophistication of the setup were chilling. This was no impulsive killer. This was a brilliant, deranged mind with resources and a long-term plan. The cryo-chambers were custom-built, designed for preservation, not disposal. And the most horrifying discovery of all. A small, personalized tag affixed to each chamber. Sam, his face pale, stared at the first tag. Sarah Jenkins. Next to it, David Chun. Then, Emily Henderson. And finally, Lucas Miller. They weren't just missing. They were being preserved. The implications were staggering, pushing the boundaries of what even Sam, a man hardened by years of dealing with depravity, could comprehend. He's not killing them and burying them, Jessica whispered, her voice trembling. He's collecting them. Amongst the machinery, a small, polished wooden box was found. Inside, resting on a bed of velvet, were 4 perfectly preserved, blood-red roses. Each one was identical, pristine, a macabre trophy of the killer's conquests. And then, they found his command center within the mine. A small, neatly organized desk held a laptop, a series of journals bound in leather, and a complex schematic diagram. The schematic was not for a new cryochamber, but for an elaborate subterranean network of tunnels, stretching far beyond the current cavern. The laptop was encrypted, but the journals provided a terrifying glimpse into the mind of the Shadow Man. They were filled with dense, philosophical musings about the nature of life and death, the futility of human existence, and the ultimate quest for immortality. The entries spoke of a grand design, a plan to preserve the essence of humanity from a world he deemed corrupt and decaying. His victims were not just people. They were specimens, carefully selected examples of ideal human archetypes to be preserved for a future, post-apocalyptic world. He saw himself as a savior, a guardian, a modern-day Noah building an ark of human souls. The killer's identity, however, remained a mystery. The journals were unsigned, written in a precise, almost elegant hand. There were no personal details, no names, no addresses. He was a ghost, a phantom, even in his own meticulously documented madness. The discovery of the mine and its chilling contents sent a new wave of shock through Willow Creek and beyond. The media descended with renewed ferocity, their reports painting a picture of a madman, a Frankenstein-like figure obsessed with twisted preservation. The news channels ran constant updates, speculating on the killer's motives, his identity, and the fate of his victims. The images of the cryo-chambers, though censored, haunted the collective consciousness of the nation. Sam, poring over the journals, felt a profound sense of unease. This wasn't just a killer. This was an ideologue, a narcissist with a messianic complex. He believed in his mission, saw his actions as morally justifiable. That made him infinitely more dangerous, more unpredictable. He's still out there, Sam stated to Jessica, his voice low and grim. He won't stop. He views these as his prized possessions, his collection, and he'll keep adding to it. Jessica, her face pale, nodded slowly. And he's not just taking people. He's taking their future, their past, their very existence. He's erasing them, then recreating them in his own twisted image. The next step was clear. They had to identify the killer. The mine provided a crucial piece of the puzzle, a physical location, a base of operations. But the man himself remained elusive, a silent predator moving through the shadows, leaving behind only the chilling echoes of his grand, horrifying design. The hunt for the Shadow Man had just begun, and the stakes could not be higher. The fate of Willow Creek, and perhaps even the very definition of humanity, lay in the balance. The discovery of the cryo-chambers in the abandoned Willow Creek mine sent shockwaves across the nation, transforming a local missing persons case into an unprecedented national crisis. The chilling reality that the victims were not merely murdered but meticulously preserved, collected by a deranged mind, gripped the collective imagination in a morbid fascination. Agent Sam Thorne and Agent Jessica Riley, now at the epicenter of a media storm, felt the immense pressure to unmask the architect of shadows. As the killer was now chillingly dubbed, the mine became a forensic gold mine, yielding countless hours of analysis. Experts from various fields, geology, engineering, cryogenics, descended upon the site, attempting to decipher the intricate setup. The journals, meticulously transcribed and analyzed by psychological profilers, painted a disturbing portrait of a highly intelligent, deeply disturbed individual with grandiose delusions. He saw himself not as a murderer, but as a curator, a visionary safeguarding prime human specimens for a future world that only he envisioned. His disdain for modern society was palpable in every entry, his belief in his own superiority absolute. The forensic team, however, encountered a frustrating obstacle. The architect of shadows was meticulous in his personal hygiene within the mine. No fingerprints, no stray hairs, no DNA traces that could be definitively linked to an individual. He had worn gloves, covered his tracks, and cleaned thoroughly. He was a ghost even in his own lair. He lives here, or spends a significant amount of time here, yet leaves nothing, Jessica noted, her voice tinged with exasperation as they reviewed the latest forensic report. It's almost as if he anticipates every move we make. He's a master of control, Jessica, Sam countered, tapping the journal. He controls the narrative, he controls the environment, and he controls our perception of him. He wants us to know what he's doing, but he doesn't want us to know who he is. That's part of the game. The schematic diagram found on the desk in the mine became a critical piece of evidence. It depicted an ambitious, multi-level expansion of the underground complex, suggesting a long-term plan, a vast collection of specimens yet to be acquired. This meant the killer would strike again, and soon. The geological analysis of the mine's rock formations provided a subtle but significant lead. The specific type of quartz veins and mineral deposits found within the mine walls were unique to a handful of old mining claims in the region, all of which had been extensively documented decades ago. One of these claims, belonging to a family named Blackwood, had a complex history. The Blackwoods were once a prominent, but now largely forgotten, family in Willow Creek, known for their reclusive nature and their deep, almost obsessive, connection to the land. The Blackwood family, Chief Miller recounted, a distant look in his eyes. Old money, but they lost most of it when the mine went bust. They were always a bit, kept to themselves. There was a son, Elias. Brilliant, they said. Went off to study engineering, something about advanced robotics. Never really came back to town, at least not visibly. But he inherited the old family property, including the mine. Elias Blackwood. The name resonated with Sam. A brilliant engineer with a family history connected to the mine, and a documented reclusiveness that would allow him to operate in the shadows. It fit the profile almost perfectly. A background check on Elias Blackwood revealed a fascinating and disturbing trajectory. He had indeed excelled in university, graduating with honors in advanced engineering and cryogenics. His doctoral thesis, ironically, was on long-term preservation of organic matter for interspecies galactic colonization. He had then disappeared from academic circles, his research papers ceasing abruptly about 5 years prior. His last known address was a P.O. box in a neighboring state, but there was no record of him actively residing anywhere. He had, in essence, become a phantom. He's been preparing for this for years, Sam realized, a cold dread washing over him. The academic background, the knowledge of cryogenics, the family ties to the mine, it's all interconnected. He saw his calling, his grand design, and then he went dark to achieve it. The old Blackwood estate, a sprawling, dilapidated property on the furthest outskirts of Willow Creek, became the next focal point. It was heavily overgrown, shrouded in an eerie silence, its once grand facade crumbling under the relentless march of time. The authorities obtained a warrant, and a heavily armed tactical team prepared to raid the property. The fear was that Elias Blackwood, if he was indeed the killer, would be dangerous, unpredictable, and perhaps even armed. The raid on the Blackwood estate was executed with precision. The house was a labyrinth of dusty rooms, filled with forgotten relics of a bygone era. There were no signs of recent occupancy in the main house, but a faint, Almost imperceptible tremor led them to a hidden entrance in the overgrown gardens, masked by a thicket of ancient rose bushes. Beneath the rose bushes, a cleverly disguised, reinforced steel door was found, leading to an underground bunker. This wasn't the mine, but another hidden facility. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, lit by an array of flickering LED lights. The bunker was a sophisticated laboratory, filled with advanced computing equipment, complex biological analyzers, and schematics for advanced cryopreservation units. And then they found him. Elias Blackwood was not hiding. He was in the central chamber of the bunker, seated calmly at a large, circular desk, meticulously annotating a series of holographic projections. He was a man in his late 40s, gaunt and pale, with piercing blue eyes that held an unnerving intensity. His hands, though slender, radiated an impression of immense capability. He wore a pristine white lab coat, a stark contrast to the grim reality of his actions. He looked up as the tactical team burst in, his expression not one of surprise or fear, but of mild annoyance, as if they had interrupted a crucial experiment. "Ah, the agents of chaos have arrived," Elias said, his voice calm, almost melodious, devoid of any tremor or panic. "You are early. My calculations indicated another cycle before your inevitable intrusion." Sam, his pistol aimed steadily at Elias, commanded, "Elias Blackwood, you are under arrest for the abduction and presumed murder of Sarah Jenkins, David Chun, Emily Henderson, and Lucas Miller. Put your hands where I can see them." Elias merely smiled, a chillingly detached expression. "Murder? Oh, agent, you misunderstand. I have given them immortality. I am preserving the finest specimens of humanity, shielding them from the inevitable decay of your diseased world. They are not dead. They are merely in stasis." As he spoke, he made a slow, deliberate movement with his hand, activating a control panel on his desk. Immediately, the holographic projections around him changed, displaying a complex network of tunnels, far more extensive than anything found in the mine. And within this network, glowing dots, each representing a cryo chamber, spread out like a web beneath Willow Creek. The mine was just one small part of a much larger, insidious design. The mine was merely a prototype, a proof of concept, Elias explained, his gaze sweeping over the baffled agents. "My true sanctuary, my Ark, is far vaster, far more secure. It encompasses the very bedrock of Willow Creek. Every home, every street, every innocent life, all within my grasp." A sense of profound horror washed over Sam. Elias Blackwood hadn't just built a few cryo-chambers. He had burrowed beneath the entire town, creating a vast, interconnected network of underground facilities, all designed to house his preserved specimens. The soil sample from Emily's house, the unique mineral composition, it wasn't from the mine's entrance, but from one of these newly excavated, deeper tunnels. Elias, seeing the dawning horror on Sam's face, chuckled softly. "You see now, don't you? The true scope of my vision. You chase shadows, agent, but I am the architect of the very ground beneath your feet. And my collection is merely beginning." He then pressed a final button on his panel. The entire bunker suddenly plunged into darkness, the emergency lights flickering on, casting long, eerie shadows. A low, rumbling sound reverberated through the ground, as if the very earth was shifting. "A small contingency," Elias explained, his voice echoing in the darkness. "A failsafe, should my work be compromised. The current phase of the Ark initiates a lockdown. And you, Agent Thorne, are now my final specimen for this cycle. The architect of the chase. A fitting addition to my collection, wouldn't you agree?" Before the tactical team could react, a section of the floor beneath Elias's desk gave way with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a dark shaft. Elias, with a final, serene smile, slipped into the darkness. The steel plate ceiling shut above him with a heavy thud, leaving behind only the echoing rumble and the stunned silence of the agents. The hunt for Elias Blackwood, the architect of shadows, was far from over. He had slipped through their grasp, retreating into his subterranean kingdom beneath Willow Creek. The immediate priority became locating and disarming his vast underground network, rescuing the preserved victims, and, above all, preventing Elias from continuing his horrifying collection. The discovery left Willow Creek in a state of unprecedented shock and terror. The idea that a madman had been building a secret underground empire beneath their very homes, silently collecting their loved ones, was a nightmare made real. The media exploded with the story, turning the quiet town into a global headline, a testament to the chilling depths of human depravity and ingenuity. Sam Thorne, standing in the now-empty bunker, staring at the sealed floor where Elias had vanished, felt a new, terrifying resolve. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a battle for the soul of a community, a race against time to stop a brilliant, disturbed individual who believed he held the key to immortality, even if it meant sacrificing the lives and humanity of countless others. The Architect of Shadows was no longer a ghost. He was a tangible threat, hiding in plain sight, pulling the strings of an entire town from the dark, cold depths of his hidden domain. The true fight for Willow Creek had only just begun.